In 2014, an obscure group of heroes made their way into the mainstream. The team consisted of a human plucked straight out of the 80s, a talking tree and raccoon with the tree only saying 3 words, along with 2 green warriors that have tragic backstories connected to Thanos. These misfits formed a group called the Guardians of the Galaxy. If you're a real one, you would have known about them from UMVC 3. Either way, they became a huge hit, shooting them straight into the stratosphere. After another movie, and being an integral part of Infinity War and Endgame, they finally got their own game. Developed by none other than the Final Fantasy Factory, Square Enix. Also, bring back Sleeping Dogs, you fucking NFT crazed idiots. This also came out 1 year after the Marvel's Avengers game. We saw how that turned out. Now the question is, how did this game turn out? Well, if you read the title, you know how it did.
Ride together! One more time. Here we go! You wanted to sing a song.
So before I start this story recap, this game has story and dialogue choices you can make. So this recap is based on my decisions. When you play it, it may come out differently or played out differently if you've already played it. Our story starts off with Peter Quill, our protagonist, having a dream about his 13th birthday party with his mom. All of this gets interrupted by Drax calling his name repeatedly. This is also when we meet the rest of the crew, Rocket Raccoon, Groot, and Gamora. They're on their way to this quarantine zone to scavenge some parts from these destroyed ships. These ships are remnants of the Chitauri War. While in one of the ships, Peter and Rocket find this stone. As Peter is holding the stone, he accidentally releases something. After the gang regroups and gets into a fight with the Space Llama, the thing that came out of the stone starts chasing them. After escaping the thing that is chasing them, the Nova Corps shows up because they entered a quarantine zone which is illegal. While being detained, a little girl shows up to escort them to their cells. While walking them to their cells, there's an explosion in the docking bay, knocking the little girl over the rails. Peter jumps over the rails to save her from falling to her death. As they're making their way up to the upper deck of the ship, Peter and the little girl get to know each other. Her name is Nikki. She's Corell's daughter. Corell and Peter had a little fling back in the day during the Chitauri War, so this has him thinking that Nikki might be his daughter. When Peter and Nikki make it back up to the upper deck, they run into Corell. Her and Nikki get into an argument about her using codes that she doesn't have clearance for to get around the ship. Peter decides to back Nikki up, gaining her trust. While in Corell's office, Peter asks her about Nikki, asking if it's his child. Corell doesn't answer but alludes to her possibly being. This is when the conversation about their fine starts to take over. Corell tells Peter he and his crew have to pay 8,000 units or they're going to prison. Now back on the ship, the crew starts going off on Peter for not getting them out of the situation. Peter, knowing Corell was supposed to help, but now they have to pay an 8,000 unit fine in 3 cycles. I'm assuming that means 3 days. So after scrounging up what little money they do have on the ship, which wasn't shit, they start cooking up a scheme. That scheme is to sell Groot to Lady Hellbender to get the units they need. After that, break Groot out and then escape to go pay off their fine. After crash landing on Seknarf 9, the gang makes it to Lady Hellbender's fortress. After being escorted to Lady Hellbender's throne room, they finally meet her. Lady Hellbender, who's thick as fuck with 3 C's and is super horny for Drax, agrees to pay them 10,000 units for Groot. Because the storm on this planet is so bad, she tells them to stay the night until it passes over. After some time passes, the gang goes to break out Groot. When they get Groot and start to make their way out, Lady Hellbender catches them. She summons this creature called Dweller in Darkness to kill them, but the team takes it out. On their way to the ship, Lady Hellbender is on their tail. When they get to the ship and start to take off, Lady Hellbender catches up. She jumps on the ship with her beast, ripping chunks out of it. They manage to get her off, leaving her screaming at the top of her lungs. While making their way to the NovaCorp ship to pay off their fine, they get a distress call from Nikki. The call is too messed up for them to decipher what's going on. When they make it to the Nova ship, it's completely empty. No Nova members whatsoever. That goes for Nikki and Corell. As they explore the ship some more, they see a group of NovaCorp soldiers kill some of their own. So the gang agrees to get the fuck out of there. After escaping the hypnotized NovaCorp soldiers, they decide to head to nowhere to talk to Cosmos. Peter knows Cosmos. Cosmos runs the place and could give them some answers to what is possibly going on. As the gang is walking through the markets of nowhere, they run into Mantis. While Mantis is catching up with Gamora, she starts to sense something when she looks at Drax. She then proceeds to tell him some vague warnings before being taken away by her protectors. Eventually, the gang splits up for multiple reasons, leaving Peter on his own. On the route to get to Cosmos, he's told that he has to take a detour. While taking this detour, he's confronted by the Blood Brothers. They were hired by Lady Hellbender to find the Guardians. Eventually, the rest of the gang shows up to help Peter, but the fight is ended by Cosmos. While unconscious in his cell, Peter has a dream about his 13th birthday again. This time we actually see what happened that day. We see that the Chitauri killed his mom and took Peter with him. That's how we got into space. When Peter wakes up, he's in Cosmos' office with the crew and the Blood Brothers. Peter tells Cosmos about what's going on with the NovaCorps. Cosmos is able to help the Guardians find out who's all behind this. It's this guy named Grand Unifier Raker. He's the one putting people under mind control to do his bidding. He was the other guy in the docking bay when the Guardians were under arrest. He's responsible for the explosion in the docking bay too. Cosmos agrees to help the Guardians, but he needs some collateral. So he decides to take their ship, which pisses the gang off, but they have no choice. So Cosmos takes them to this thing called Continuum Cortex that'll get them to Hala's Hope regardless of where it's at. Hala's Hope is the ship that Corell commands. After almost being sucked into space when they first get to Hala's Hope, they explore the ship. When they get further into the ship, they find this giant cannon looking thing. It's siphoning energy from this planet called Catraxia. Pushing further into the ship, the gang finally makes it to Corell's quarters. This is when we find out two things. One is that Nikki has been looking into Peter to see if he's her dad. The evidence shows that that might be the case, but Corell hid it from him. The second thing is that they find body cam footage of what happened to Hala's Hope, Corell, and Nikki. After releasing the Guardians, they went into the quarantine zone from earlier. This led to an encounter with the thing that came out of the stone Peter picked up. Before the Guardians are able to get off Hala's Hope, Grand Unifier Raker shows up with this massive ship taking them and the ship with him. As Raker is taking them to go see the matriarchy, he tells the Guardians his backstory. He tells them that his son died during the Chitauri War from a disease. After his son's death, it was the light that set him on this path. He also found the person with the light, a healer. This is when we get to see the matriarch. It's Nikki. When Peter tells Nikki he's going to get her out of here, she tells him she doesn't want to leave because of her newfound powers. It's called the Promise. She shows Peter what her newfound powers can do. She reunites Peter with his mom even though she's dead. She even has the rest of the Guardians on the farm to keep him complacent. Eventually, Peter breaks out the first layer by killing his mom. The second layer is with him, Nikki, and Corell living together as a family. It's Corell's birthday and Nikki is throwing a party for her. She keeps calling Peter dad, which is making him super uncomfortable. This is when Peter gets sucked into some spirit realm of sorts by Corell's spirit. She lets him know that she is dead and that he needs to save Nikki because she doesn't know what she's doing. That Nikki needs to accept the fact that she's dead. Everyone snaps out of the illusion, turning everything in the real world into chaos. After escaping Raker and his people, the gang goes to see the World Mind. The World Mind is the creator of the NovaCorps. They explain what they know to the World Mind, but it doesn't care. It says, good luck with all that shit. We have to preserve ourselves. Leaving before Raker shows up. Raker takes all the people that were there seeking refuge from all of this. The gang goes to their room to figure out what to do next. While Peter is listening to some music, he falls asleep, to be woken by a possessed Drax. Drax asks Peter about the promise. Did he accept it? Peter says yes to keep Drax from doing something crazy. This leads to them getting locked in their rooms. When they finally get out of their rooms, they figure out they've landed on Lamentis. After some walking, they find Drax going apeshit on this villager. This is when Mantis shows up and puts Drax down, putting him under her control for the time being. Back on Nowhere, when she whispered in his ear, she told him to come here. She knew he was going to accept the promise. She can see into the future and alternate futures. They venture into this dark, dank cave. While venturing in this cave, they find Adam Warlock, the healer Raker was talking about, and also the key to stopping all of this. The power Raker is using is the other half of his. We also find out that the thing that came out of the stone is called Magus. Adam agrees to help them take down Magus and Raker. Also to help break Drax out of the promise. After getting Drax out of the promise, they leave the cave. Once outside the cave, Lamentis is under attack by the matriarch. Mantis tells the Guardians she'll stay behind to help her people. So the Guardians and Adam head back to Nowhere to check on Cosmos. When they get to Nowhere, it's been taken over by Raker. Adam jumps the gun to go find Raker. As they get further into Nowhere, they come across Cosmos. He has fallen for the promise. The Guardians are able to snap him out of it so he can go save his pups. Venturing further into Nowhere, they find Nikki. They try to talk some sense into Nikki, but she tells them that she believes in what she's doing. This is when Raker shows up with the defeated Adam Warlock. Nikki and Raker take off with Adam. This leads the Guardians to tracking them down. When they catch up to them, they see that Raker has full control over the Nova Corps. This leads to them rethinking their approach. So they go back to a plan that Drax had earlier. That is to take down Fin Fang Foom and offer it to Lady Hellbender. So they go to Fin Fang Foom's lair to summon it. After summoning Fin, they manage to take it down. This is when Lady Hellbender shows up and wrecks the Guardians. This is when Mantis shows up, reminding her that she said she would hear them out first. Peter tells her what's going on and what's on the horizon for her and her people. After Groot brings Fin Fang Foom back to life, Lady Hellbender agrees to join them. This starts to put the wheels in motion to take down Raker for good and save Nikki. This is when the final showdown starts. Lady Hellbender, Cosmos, the World Mind, and all people associated with them shows up to help the Guardians take on Raker and his huge fleet so they can get inside. Once inside, they find Nikki and Raker. Once again, they try talking to Nikki, but it doesn't work. She puts him under the promise, putting Peter back into the illusion where Nikki is throwing a party for Corel. This time, Peter has a real heart-to-heart with Corel's spirit. They both come to terms with her death. Corel tells Peter that Nikki is not his kid. She's an orphan from the Chitauri War. Before disappearing, she asks Peter to save her daughter. This leads to Peter destroying her party to help Nikki snap out of the promise. To help Nikki come to terms with everything, they have a real heart-to-heart moment. These things completely snap Nikki out of the promise. When Nikki breaks out of the promise, she is able to harness the power she's been using. This transforms her into a Super Saiyan essentially. This infuriates Raker, so he jumps into the contraption that Nikki was attached to, taking a lot of the power for himself to take out the Guardians for good. Of course, that doesn't happen because our group of ragtag heroes come together as a team to take him down. As they defeat Raker, Adam jumps into the contraption Nikki and Raker were attached to, effectively shutting down everything while also absorbing Magus in the process. After taking their celebration walk and talking to everyone to help with their victory, they get on the Milano to go do whatever they want. But something starts brewing. Magus starts to possess Adam Warlock and brings the Guardians into his mind to kill them for everything they've done. This leads to the Guardians taking down Magnus with the Soul Stone. Peter sacrifices himself to put Magus in the Soul Stone. Back in the real world, the gang is coming to terms that Peter is gone. Groot says fuck all that and brings Peter back to life like he did with Fin Fang Foom. When Peter comes to, it's agreed to give Adam Warlock the Soul Stone to keep Magus from escaping again. That's the end of the story. So here are my thoughts on this story. It's fucking amazing. This is what the Avengers should have been. Point blank, period. A solid single player narrative driven experience. Not some live service bullshit. The biggest thing that this game does over the Avengers is that it gives each character an identity, instead of banking off the two movies that have been out at that point. This game makes a point to introduce each character one by one, giving you a brief background into each one while establishing their personalities for this game. Just because they're Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't mean they're always going to act the same. Now, of course, they do in this game, but it's still something that needs to be done. That's because even though this is a Marvel property and is a byproduct of the movies doing so well, this game is not a part of the MCU. It has its own continuity, its own universe to build. The reason why I'm harping on this so much is because this is what the Avengers game forgot to do. This game doesn't in the slightest. Because it doesn't forget, you're able to form a bond with this iteration of the Guardians. The narrative between Peter, Nikki, and Corell is legit sad by the end of the game. You have Peter thinking he's been a deadbeat dad to Nikki, especially because he grew up without one, so he puts his life on the line to save her. To have all that come crashing down by the ghost of Corell. Now he has to accept the fact that Corell is actually dead, also that Nikki is not his daughter when he was getting excited at the possibility. It's tear-jerking low-key. Nikki trying to find out if Peter's her dad, not knowing she's an orphan, seeing her break down when she finds out that Peter is not, also that Corell is really dead. All of that stuff is emotionally gripping. Corell is trying her best to raise Nikki as a single mother, still having feelings for Peter, but knows it can never happen again. It's so fucking good. This game sums up all of this spectacularly in one particular moment, making me really feel for these characters emotionally. Something that I never personally got from the movies. To the point where when I think of the Guardians, I will think about this game over anything else. Now, I will admit, I have not seen Guardians 3, which I heard was pretty good. It does a lot of this stuff I've been harping on about here. Either way, this moment made me really fall in love with this game. You can skip this part if you want to because I'm going to show it in its entirety. I recommend you don't, but you can do what you want to do. I can't stop you.
Bud, is everything all right?
You believe that this is the edge of the universe, Peter Quill?
Well, yeah, because it is. So, this is the thing you had to do? Come to the observation deck to look at the rift?
No. I came to honor the memory of my family. They died without meaning or honor.
I think I know what you mean, man. My mom won the Shatara game. She also died for no reason. They just shot her. But at least she's in a better place now. Right?
In Catathian religion, we believe that in order to reach Ultaf, one must lead a life filled with purpose. And that failure to do so results in banishment to Sarduth. Our families have been cast out of paradise, Peter Quill, and into nothing.
That's why you come up here.
Yes. To feel close to them. Speak to them. Perhaps you think that sounds foolish.
No, not at all. You know, on Earth, a lot of people think that good people go to heaven and are reunited with their loved ones when they die.
This heaven sounds pleasant.
Yeah, it does. Thinking of her there, my mom, in heaven, got me halfway through the war. That and my hate for the Chitauri who imprisoned me.
You desired revenge.
Yeah, I guess I did.
When Thanos murdered my family, for a long time I believed that their wasted lives would be redeemed if I took revenge on him. But then I realized Thanos cannot be killed.
But you did kill him.
Propaganda, Peter Quill. Spread to quell fears after the war. The fabric of my being, I know he still lives. If you do not mind, Peter Quill, I would like to be left alone now.
Oh, yeah, sure, man.
Peter Quill,
Yeah.
I hope your mother found her way to heaven.
If that moment between Drax and Peter didn't get you a little bit emotional or teary-eyed, then you're a real one, I guess. But that shit to me was the defining moment of this game. Now, I don't want y'all to think that this game is nothing but sad and emotional shit. Even though there are quite a few moments like that in here, it still has a lot of the Marvel movie trademarks. For better,
Wait, there were more of you. The little one is missing.
Perhaps he died like your son.
or for worse.
Hi, guys.
But mainly worse.
It's okay, guys. It's him, Aaron Witchcraft. No, wait, Aiden Warsock. Ashley Warsock.
The back and forth banter that has become the dead horse staple in the MCU, along with his patented quippy humor that is beyond dead, it's literally been reduced to atoms. It's been so overused. This stuff really sticks his ugly head out whenever Mantis is around. If you couldn't tell, I absolutely despise Marvel's humor now. So before I go on a long tangent about how shit it is, let's move on to the gameplay.
You're always there for us. And that's what this is about. Us. Growing together as a team, following a crazy lady into a death cave because one of us needs help. Because we are a team. Help, we're a family. We're the fucking Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yay!
Really great speech, Quill.
Visually, this game is absolutely stunning. The locations you go through are gorgeous. I'm not gonna describe them, I'm just gonna let you see it for yourself.
I'm thinking that big cylinder thing is our rendezvous.
Yeah, that's the mining rig.
So weird.
It's not a castle. It is an impregnable fortress.
So how do we impregnate it?
Ask Peter!
This transfers wonderfully over to the characters. I absolutely love the way the characters look. Instead of going the Avengers route of doing these knockoffs of their movie counterparts, they decided to give them their own look, which pays off in more ways than one. Peter doesn't look like Chris Pratt, Gamora doesn't look like Zoe Saldana, Drax doesn't look like Dave Bautista, Rocket and Groot don't look like, well, for them it doesn't matter because they were CG. The reason why I'm putting so much emphasis on this is because it gives them their own identity. Like I brought up in the story section, this makes this version of the Guardians unique in my opinion. Pair all of that up with the multiple costumes you can unlock for each character. It makes this iteration of the Guardians really stand out. Especially the 5 Horsemen of the Apocalypse costumes are fucking fire. The same goes for the voices they give each character in this game. Every voice matches the characters more than their movie counterparts in my opinion. Now when it comes to gameplay, unfortunately there isn't much here. So this is going to be quick. So throughout the whole game you play as Peter. He only has one weapon, that being his blasters. As you progress through the story, you unlock 4 elemental upgrades for them. Ice, wind, lightning, and plasma, aka fire. All of these do exactly what their names are. You use these to solve puzzles or take down certain enemies that are weak to those elements. That's it for his blasters. They don't do any more than that, which is a shame. You can upgrade Peter at a workbench with Rocket Raccoon, but even these are lackluster. There are only 15 upgrades total throughout the entire game. These can range from having your shields recharge faster to a perfect dodge that slows down time. You obtain these upgrades by finding components. Components are scattered all throughout the locations you explore. I suggest you get the components localizer upgrade as soon as possible. It would notify you when they're close by, making them extremely easy to find. I wish the upgrades had a weapon damage increase or faster health pickups for Peter. His blasters are hella weak to me at times, making the enemies feel like bullet sponges. Also making some encounters an absolute pain to get through because the sheer amount of enemies they throw at you. Pair all this up with health drops that take forever to make their way to Peter. I mean, you can literally run right over them and still have to wait a few seconds for them to be absorbed. It really makes some sections of this game an absolute slog to get through. The only other upgrades in this game are the abilities you can unlock for each member of the crew. Everybody has 4 abilities to unlock, 3 regular abilities and 1 ultimate, with Rocket Raccoon having my absolute favorite. Just look at how cool this is.
Ready for this as I am! Better than therapy!
Maybe still considered therapy!
You unlock these by using ability points. These are obtained as you earn XP and level up throughout the campaign. Each ability costs the amount of points they're unlocked in. So the first ability you unlock costs 1 and the ultimate ability costs 4, with it being the last one. So you'll need 10 ability points per character for all 4 abilities. While in combat, you'll get a prompt to do a team takedown. Sometimes it's with the whole crew. Sometimes it can be with an individual crew member. This makes some encounters easy to get through along with certain boss fights. If you and your team start to get overwhelmed, you can do the huddle to give you some breathing room. This mechanic rallies all of the members together in a huddle. You first hear them out to see how they feel about the situation. Then depending on your response, you can cheer them up and give them a buff in combat, or do the exact opposite, bringing down their moods even more. So that's all when it comes to gameplay. Like I said, there really isn't much here. Don't take that as a huge knock against it though. The sum of its parts is what makes this game in my opinion. Now, despite how positive I've been towards this game, I now have to dunk on it a little bit. Let's start off with some bugs I encountered during my sessions. There was one bug where I got stuck in between 2 platforms. This caused me to reload a checkpoint to escape that black hole of a gap. This bug is well known but was never fixed.
I get it.
I had another bug similar to this kinda, where I was trying to make my way onto this ledge, but the game kept on turning me around for some reason. I genuinely don't know what's going on here.
Cave level more. What do you mean it's not a good look? I'm being honest. I do not secretly love Drax. Ew, gross.
A few inches later.
The next bug was with Groot just disappearing out of nowhere, causing me to reload a checkpoint again because I needed Groot to progress.
You sure are destroying a lot of advertising today.
Like we need another reminder to buy Calex cream.
Bridge to, over there.
This next bug was super weird because it happened after a cutscene. Once the cutscene finished, Peter wouldn't move at all, as if he got paralyzed or his soul had left his body or something. This, of course, was remedied by me reloading the checkpoint. This was not a bug, but the biggest and most aggravating problem with this game is the performance. Now, I played this game on PC, so if you play this on console, it may not be as bad. On PC though, it was low-key a fucking nightmare. Stutters out the ass in some places, random frame drops at random times, but it gets even worse. I had a total of 5 hard crashes during these sessions. 4 of them during the final chapters of the game. Just in case if you don't know what a hard crash is, it basically kicked me back to my desktop. I have no footage of this unfortunately because the hard crash would crash my recording software. This was super aggravating on so many levels. Every time I was getting invested in the giant set pieces during the climax, hard crash. Every single time. It just got to the point where I cut down my settings a little bit to stop it, which isn't something I should have to do, especially when they weren't even that high up to begin with. This is another thing that is well documented, but was never fixed for some reason. So once again, if you plan on playing this on PC, be aware of this stuff. If you're playing on consoles, you might be fine. You'll know once you play it. All I can say is, shout out to the autosave in this game. It's low-key the MVP. These next few things are not bugs. They're just things I didn't like or didn't care for too much. Peter's jet boots are trash, unfortunately. The duration on them is extremely short. Not only that, the height you get from them is pitiful as well. I'm not saying I need him flying around like Iron Man or anything like that. They still could have beefed him up a little bit more than that though. The slide sections are bad as well. The movement on Peter is too stiff. It's really easy to get caught up on geometry. Pair that up with gaps you need to jump over sometimes, along with everything else I said about the jet boots. Not fun. There are 2 sections where you engage in ship combat. Unfortunately, the ship combat is not that good. It feels kind of off while also being restrictive. It's one of those things you have to play them to understand. The last one is the boss fights. They're okay. My main issue with them is that they're really one note. It boils down to you shooting and shooting. Using ability here and there until they're staggered, and then you lay into them. Making the boss fights one note, repetitive, and low-key boring. It really starts to become noticeable when you fight Riker at the end of the game. He has all these moves that will fuck you over so quick. Like he has one that silences you and your group so you can't use any abilities. Or one that makes the screen virtually black so you can't see anything, while he's still attacking you and your team. It fucking sucks on so many levels, and don't get me started on the Magus boss fight. Fuck that boss fight, seriously. But the skeleton boss fights are awesome though. That's all I got. Let's wrap it up.
I believe this is yours, Star-Lord.
So if you can tell by now, despite some of its shortcomings, this game is really solid. Could there have been more upgrades? Yes. Did this game need more optimization, especially on the PC side, so I didn't hard crash 4 times during the last few chapters? Yes. Fucking yes. Even with all of that, I still recommend this game because the story is really fucking good. It made me care about characters that I've always been indifferent towards. Once again, that convo between Drax and Peter is one of the peak moments in this game. The gameplay is fairly solid, dope unlockable costumes. Overall, it does what the Avengers forgot to do, and that's being a solid single-player narrative-driven experience with high replay value, not because you need to grind endlessly for new gear. If you haven't played it, do, because you can find it on sale most of the time for cheap. Not only that, one is still purchasable, and you don't have to worry about the servers ever being shut down.